Greetings, Taxidermy gang. Welcome again to the Matuska Taxidermy Supply Company Thursday afternoon Facebook Live with Brett Wingfield, Tom Matuska, and we're into the Bobcat project.
Yes, we are.
And we got a nice sunny day here in Spirit Lake, a little bit windy. You can tell fall's coming. A lot of people are calling in already with bears and velvet deer, and you can kind of tell what's going on around the country with what we're selling. Selling a lot of Velvelock.
Yep.
A lot of things that are showing me that people are getting out there and doing what we love to do best.
Sheep hunters are out. The caribou hunters are out. The bow hunters are out.
Yep.
It's almost in full swing.
And we got, like you said, caribou coming. Had a muskox the other day.
Oh my gosh. It's time. It is that time. It's cooling off a little bit.
Yep.
Today's warm, but I think I saw we have a high of like in the 60s this weekend coming.
That'll be fun to get your blood going.
Yeah.
Start thinking about getting out there.
Yep.
Well, if you watched us the last few weeks, we've been on the Bobcat project, and kind of maybe we go into too much detail when we do these, but we try to point people in the right direction. And like I always say, we're not trying to teach beginners taxidermy. However, we do get a lot of calls.
We do.
From people who have never done this before, and apparently we make it look easy because they think they want to try it. We had somebody the other day who has never tanned anything before, and he said, I need everything to tan a bear hide. What do I need? I always say the first thing you need is 10 years experience. Don't do this at home. It's a lot of this, if you want to practice on your own thing, something that's expendable. If you want to learn that way, that's a fine way to do it. But for heaven's sakes, don't take in some guy's trophy buck and say, oh, I bet I can mount it for you. I stayed in a Holiday Inn last night, Holiday Inn Express. That's not funny. What we're here for. We're here for those people also, but especially for the taxidermists who maybe can find a better way or a tip that we might show them to make their life a little bit easier. But beginners, we love you watching, but this isn't where to learn taxidermy. This isn't where to learn
caution.
Proceed with caution. People that learn on their own like that, sometimes it can be a disastrous ending.
Your third one will be better than your first.
So, and your 100th will be better than your third.
Yeah.
So, this is, we've done on the Bobcat, we took a base of our own making, that we sell in the supply company. This is one of our Bobcats, and if you start from the very beginning, are we on like 5? Number 5. So we will promise we'll wrap this up this year sometime, I hope, because it's been dragging on a long time. A lot of these projects, we never throw things together, and you can see a lot of, you can look at the work that people do, and you can tell how much care and how much effort they put into it. And we want to be proud of what we do and what we give to our customers, so we do spend a lot of time. But we started with walking Bobcat pose, one of ours, kind of standing, I think he is. And he stands on a rock like this, or is that the
same rock?
Same one.
We flipped it over,
And anyway, this one we changed, we altered, we cut him, and you can watch the whole probably session 1, 2, and 3. We were still cutting on him. Last week, did we put in rods in his legs? We talked about ordering your mannequins, whether it's a sheep or a deer, whatever it happens to be. Lots of times, if we know we're going to do a lot of alterations, we will leave the rods out and put them in ourselves, and that's real easy to do with a Dremel tool. Depending on what you want, you can switch out whatever kind of bit you want, bend your wire first, make a little tracing on it, and just follow it down. It's pretty easy to do, to put your own rods in. Gets a little tougher when you get into the bigger, heavier threaded rods, but it's a nice way to do it if you're only moving foam and you don't have to worry about bending big heavy rods. So we showed you that. The hide we tanned, and I think that's probably a Lutan F tan, and Lutan F followed by a good tanning oil. You can have them commercially tanned also. We sometimes don't on our little animals because they are fragile. Sometimes the big factory tans are a little too harsh on them for our liking, and so we usually will tan our own little animals with Lutan F. So you see the Bobcat here, and that's just the skin, and we test fit him. After you do all these alterations and you start cutting and bending, you can make the animal bigger or smaller without even realizing it. So to start with, we did test fit him on the stock form, and he fit pretty good, if I remember right.
Yep, we
fit
had a
really
real,
nice.
a real good start.
And that's rare too.
Yeah.
And like we said, you can always pick the pose you want, make it bigger or smaller, or pick the size you need and change it into the pose you want, which is what we did. Yeah. So we changed him into the pose, and you go to a lot of work, but before you go too far, before you start making him beautiful and filling in all your little holes and cracks and cuts, we better make sure that he fits. So we were a little late getting started today, and that was because we thought, oh, we should put him on for the people. And all we did was took this hide. Now remember, he was a case cut animal from hind leg to hind leg. We have the choice. We could cut the legs off and insert them and put them together inside the skin to minimize our sewing. If you don't like to sew, that would be what you want to do. Put him together in pieces without cutting him open. We just took him and cut up the belly and cut up the legs because we sew a lot. We're used to sewing. Sewing doesn't bother us or scare us. It's not the fastest way, but it's definitely the easiest way to get him on and see how he fits. So that was what we did here. Draped him on the hide or on the form, and I think it's a pretty good fit.
Yeah, it feels like a real good fit. We went through and we checked our measurements. We checked our mannequin to the measurements, our carcass measurements that we had, so we knew we were pretty close. We stayed pretty true to those, and crossed our fingers real good, and it seems like it's going to be a real nice fit. So a little bit of guesswork in that test fit, and you'll know from experience, because we have so many, the surface of that foam is rough, so it likes to grab the hide. We have pretty comfortable with, if we're within an inch, the glue and movement will give us that extra inch at the end, and we know that'll come together. But if you're really uncertain of your fit, you could slide a plastic bag over the mannequin. I've seen people do that. That works pretty nice. If you have cuts that you're trying to minimize your sewing and it's hard to shimmy that mannequin up in there, that helps. What we did was just spray some water between the mannequin and the skin, and it helps it slide in place. But for a 3-minute test fit, I think we're in good shape.
Fast test fit. As you're working with the hide, or we put them in the freezer a lot of times, with a Lutan F or with a commercial tan, that hide is good for, what would you say, maybe 6, 7, 8 days. Refrigerated at night, out during the day, refrigerated at night, and it'll give you plenty of time with no damage. But as you're working with it, the hide has salt in it, and it will continually want to dry out. Yes. And as it dries out, it's going to shrink a little bit. So you're not going to sometimes be able to test fit it. You were sliding the head on, and the first thing I saw you do was grab the water and wet the skin, which just rehydrates it and lets it stretch back to its elastic stage.
And worth telling them too, water's your friend, but water can also work against us too. We like to have a bactericide in our water.
And I see you have colored water.
Yeah, our water looks a little like Kool-Aid. but we put X-Effect in all of our water that we use in the shop. And if they look at our cat, we're spraying the water on the leather side and really not saturating the fur.
Yeah.
I think that's helpful too.
That's a real good point, and to go into that a little bit more, hair loss and slippage is caused by bacteria growth. Bacteria growth requires two elements. One is moisture, so we're adding moisture, so that's not good. Yeah. The other thing is a warm temperature. We can minimize our bacteria growth by the bactericide. Like you mentioned, X-Effect, we've used that. It's changed over the years, different components, but X-Effect is a good non-phenolic. Phenol is found to be a cancer causer. Yeah. That's the stuff that they used to put in white paste when you're a little kid, not you. Oh, yeah. When I was a little kid, we had peppermint type glue, white glue.
Kids like to eat it.
You did want to eat it. You did want to eat it right off the little spatula. And all the little kid first and second graders, they had white glue, and it smelled pepperminty, and that's phenol. So that's why none of those little kids are around anymore. So this is non-phenolic, and it's a good hospital disinfectant. It will kill any germ. We drink it for COVID and all that kind of stuff. It's good stuff.
Not really.
Not exactly. We gargle, maybe. Maybe gargle.
Works good. But so we've got him on the mannequin. He looks like he's got a good fit, but there's some baggy skin. Should we show him what we do with that?
Sure, sure. Fine. And let me tell you about test fitting or mounting anything. If you have trouble in those areas, I always tell people there's things you know where it has to go. The end of his nose has to go here. The end of his paws have to go there. His tail has to end up here, and these two little flaps down here have to end up under his tail. If you pin all those into place and there's no way in the world you can get him together in the middle, better check your measurement sheets, because remember, you took exceptional measurements on your Matuska Taxidermy mammal book. Right. And all you have to do is walk over to that book, open it up, say, why doesn't he fit? And you check, and oh my gosh, he's 22 inches around here, but the book says he was 18. Now you know that has to go down. Yep. Or if you can't stretch this tail back here, you look at your little Matuska Taxidermy mammal measurement book and you stretch a tape on there, and this cat mannequin is 34 inches, and in your book, the customer's Bobcat was 31 inches, you know we got to get rid of 3 inches in length in there somewhere. There's no better reference that you're going to have for size and dimension and than your measurements that you took. Yep. And you don't need to, you can take you can sketch up a bobcat, you can, or whatever kind of animal it is, and you can make your own measurement sheet. Should we take him off? Ready for that?
Yep, I think we should. Should we pull him down and take him over there? We can show him too. We can show him that he fits. Do you think they believe us? There's a little foam showing.
Oh, on the sheet, you mean?
Well, I was thinking on the mannequin.
Okay, do it.
They believe us. But one thing, when you were talking about putting the knowns where they go, I think that's really important to a good test fit, because sometimes if you hurry through your test fit and say your tail isn't pinned in place where the tail goes, if we bring that tail way up here and we stretch that skin, we can take a whole bunch of skin out of his rear end and bring it forward and think, oh, he's going to fit around the belly, but he may not make it back to the tail anymore. Yeah, yep, he may not make it all the way back there. So really important to get all of the knowns in place before you start stretching the unknowns or the guesstimates down the belly.
And as you know, we've said it a lot of times, taxidermy means taxi, to arrange, dermy, the dermis, the skin. So with glue in there, you're going to arrange all of the unknown skin into a natural position, hair patterns.
And as we go through here, you can see he's snug. I'm within probably 3/4 of an inch of touching there. I'm just about touching back here. I'm just short of touching right there. And like we said before, we'll put some glue on that and it'll slide. But there's a whole bunch of skin right here. Oh, somebody's calling, tell us we're doing something wrong. We've got a whole bunch of skin right here, right in front of his hip. And we've got a gather of skin.
Here, I'll hold him and you show.
Back here. Well, does that work?
Yep.
Right behind that leg. What would we do with those?
Okay, when I started in taxidermy, we didn't have such wonderful instruction or wonderful instructors.
Or YouTube.
Seminarians.
Oh,
from the priesthood.
Probably had those.
No. So I mounted a lot of critters, and having no instruction whatsoever, kind of just a rough idea of taxidermy instruction and then pushed out to see what you could come up with. I had all this skin here, like you said, in front of the leg. Anytime you had a leg back or a leg hunched up, you got all kinds of skin. So, you know, I would think, man, what am I going to do? I can't have that big old pile of skin there. There's no place for it to go. I did not know what a tuck groove was. So, very carefully and strategically, I'd take my scalpel and I would cut all of that out, and then I would pull it forward and I'd cut all this out, and I would sew meticulously all the way up to his shoulder, and I would have a big old pile of skin. I still have a mountain lion mounted in the showroom that's laying on a rock that I cut out more skin than I left to cover the form because I didn't know anything about tuck grooves. You, I think, are going to show them how to get rid of this skin without cutting.
I don't know how. How are you going to do it? I think so. Now we can take everything off of here and we'll show them why we have that gather of skin. One more pin. Get that.
Now there's a lot to do to this mannequin yet. We're going to show you tuck grooves. We're going to show you what to do with the toes. Show you inserting the ear liners.
Yeah, we got.
And we took the eyes
There we
out
go.
just because we were going to lose them.
Yep. And they're acrylic, and didn't want to scratch them through all of this. So now I will ball this up. And where we had our issue with excess skin was right off of that front shoulder, right up here in the armpit. And you can see that when we altered this, we glued it all together. There's no room for that skin to slide up behind this shoulder, which would have naturally been in place just as your t-shirt fits up under your arm. We need to make the skin. Is that a good analogy? Your t-shirt goes up under your arm? I've never heard that
before. I've always used, I've told it different,
your
but I
skin
thought
goes
that's
up
a good
under
idea.
your arm.
It's a good idea.
But we need to make some accommodation for that skin to go up in here and probably a little bit right up in here.
Maybe a little bit right up in here.
Yep, in that back leg where it's hunched up, that would be a good spot. And any of these areas that you think that the skin overlaps itself, you can make a tuck groove as long as you're not making him weak. And if you don't use it, you don't use it. That's okay.
And sometimes you do make it weak, so be conscious of that. As you're making a tuck groove down here, don't cut too far forward or you're going to break it, and that's exactly what we did 25 years ago on a big brown bear when we were telling about.
We sure did.
Mark and you and I.
So the next thing we would do is try to make some accommodations for for that skin to slide up there, and you can do it with a knife, you can do it with a saw blade, that works pretty good. We've got a Dremel tool here, which is really tight, and a Dremel works good. We're just going to use a Dremel with a drill bit. I'm going to grab, or I think Tom might be grabbing a, have you got a pliers, Tom? A pair of pliers?
Pliers?
Yeah. Or we could use a hacksaw blade, that works pretty good. Anything to make a small and fairly accurate cut up under the armpit or in between. We need enough of a relief cut that the skin can slide, 2 layers of skin and the hair. On a bobcat, that doesn't have to be very big. If this was a deer or a big bear or something with a lot of hair, it might be a little bit, we might have to make, thank you, a little bit
large
more of a cut. But in this case, we're not gonna make a big one. Swap out our.
And just think about these animals, where the skin's going to kind of be inserted. So you wouldn't want to cut up in the center of the chest when the arm is right here, and that's where the line would be. Arm is right here, kind of where we already have, where we put the form together.
Yeah. And that's worth mentioning too, the bobcat that we originally had the legs removable. And those, when we put those removable joints together, they were somewhat strategically planned so that you can slide the legs in, the skin comes up into place, and then put it together, and you really don't need tuck grooves in that other instance. You want to cut for them?
Okay, now, anytime, and you can test it on your skin, but when you do your test fit, feel and see where you have the big gather. Anytime there's a leg stretched out, like this left front leg, anytime it's stretched out, very often there's no need for a tuck groove there.
Yep.
You're not going to
tuck it. Just like if I put that, I wouldn't, my t-shirt doesn't need to slide up under.
That skin's all stretched out. Whereas anytime there is a leg probably straight down or farther back, there's a good chance you are going to need a tuck groove. Sometimes we just don't know. I'm thinking we're going to need one here. I may not need it. So if I make a tuck groove here and I'm mounting the bobcat, sewing him up and starting to taxi the skin, oh, it drums across there really nice. It looks good. I have the tuck groove there. Should I have needed it? I don't. I let it drum right across, let the glue fill in. So I'm just going to take and what I was looking for when I left was we have a really nice little lip saw, we call it, but it's a little kind of like an X-Acto saw. I'm not sure the name of it, and with a nice plastic handle, and that's a really nice. You can go really slow, and you can make a nice little cut in here.
I don't know where that went. I haven't seen that in a while.
Oh, it can't be far.
I'm sure it's right here.
We have tools we don't even know we have. Now I'm just gonna prop it up here so you can see a little bit. I'm just gonna go the depth of the blade just so I don't cut him off, cut the leg off. Now I don't know how far I need to go up, so if I go a little too far, again, it's not going to matter because the skin will just drum right across it.
There we go.
Okay, I'll clean this out just a little bit. Now I have a nice cut in here, and I went in pretty deep. I'm probably, inch and a half in, I suppose. Now I would like to take sandpaper, like 120 grit or something a little on the coarse side. Oh yeah, or a nice little file like this. We sell these, I bet, don't we?
We do. We do.
We don't sell the sandpaper. This is what you want. And it comes in a nice little set, right?
Yeah, they do. They do. They're handy. Those little files are handy.
Yeah, forget the sandpaper that you get uptown.
I bet if Mandy heard, we'd be selling sandpaper next week.
Okay, now, I've only done behind the leg. I still want to go up in the front, and I don't know how much I'm going to need up here. I'm going to go up farther than I think I do. And you have to work around the legs. That's why the little hand tools sometimes are easier. Now, like Brett said, be careful when you do this, because I went in, you know, 1.5 inches here, and I probably went in 1.5 inches here, so now I don't have quite as much foam holding that together. So be thinking of that as you're making your tuck groove.
Another be aware of, back when we put our rods in, you might have heard us mention being careful not to put your rods through those tuck areas, and this is what we were talking about. So if you would have put that wire in and it crossed that tuck groove, it kind of makes it tough for you now when we're going and making those cuts. So fortunately we didn't have anything interfering there, but do be aware of that.
Okay, now this is kind of rough. I would neaten it up a little bit with some sandpaper, all the way from here all the way back up into there. Remember, where that skin goes in there, it's not going to be a sharp corner, and what I have now is a sharp corner. So I would bevel that sharp corner and kind of round it so it looks like a natural skin from the arm folding into skin from the belly. So I'm cut all the way from almost up to his throat, which I shouldn't need that much. I should be able to stop tucking back in there if I need it, and I'm cut all the way up to here, and I don't think I'll need it that far, only to about there. So we should be able to get that big hoop of skin that you showed him earlier, should be able to tuck all the way up in there. And to do that, we have little tucking tools and a variety of different tools for that purpose. And when we put the skin on or put the glue on and then we put the skin on, that skin should be real slippery and it should easily slide up in there. And like you mentioned, a bigger animal like a caribou, for instance, which has really heavy hair and thick hair, if you're planning on tucking it up in there, you may need, or a big brown bear, you might need a larger tuck groove.
And sometimes it's nice too, you would cut those tuck grooves a little bit farther ahead of where they go. It's nice to have that extra amount just to be able to taxi the skin. You can always work it back out of that groove. But that does help sometimes to not minimize those tucks. That way you've got plenty of room to adjust the skin.
Now to save time, I'm just going to do that one. I'm pretty sure we won't need one here, but it takes 2 minutes to cut one. You might as well do it. Cut one up in here and between the arm. That way, if you have a lot of skin right here, I don't think you'll need it, but you might. This leg, because they're hunched up, I'm quite certain you're going to need something here, and you're going to need something there, and I'm going to bet you're going to need something right in here. And this one you got to be careful of, because you don't want to go so deep that this breaks off and you got 2 pieces here. And also, watch your angle that you're cutting. Don't, on a tuck groove, don't cut in like this, don't cut in like this. You're going to weaken stuff. Kind of find an angle that leaves a little bit of meat of foam. Okay, any questions on any of this stuff? Good, good. We're either explaining really good or, okay. Next, we need to deal with the nose. Should we try that?
We got a nose. We've got a lip slot to do. Yeah, I think. Did you want to show them that? I can get your Dremel set for you. So we're going to have to, on any of the mannequins that have a foam nose, and just like your deer, the supply company, the mold that they're made out of,
oh, there it is.
the molds that they're made out of will only allow us to put so much detail in. Otherwise, we would be breaking the foam to get it out. So you'll notice that you have to add depth to the foam that is given here. Some of them are going to be deeper than others. Some of them are not going to be much. I think you even mentioned in some cases, rather than try to Dremel that out, we may even cut it off. We've done that in the past.
We used to do that a lot.
Yeah, works really well. Some mannequins will come with an artificial nose, and that's a great option too, is to go with a nose that's cast from the original and it's all there and all your depth and detail. We've got several different references. This is a mountain lion that you've had for years.
Looks like a good bobcat reference to me.
Nice and
big. And
big.
my eyes can see it. Sometimes I use an African lion when I'm doing bobcats, just so I can see it really, really well. But this is not going to be very different than what we're trying to sculpt in the bobcat. And those of you who have done a lot of deer, this is, somebody's going to really scream at me for this. This is very similar to the rules that we follow when we do deer and elk and moose and things like that. The one thing that I notice about this nose or that bobcat nose that's on the head, same thing, it's easier to show you on this, is that the floor of the nostril is somewhat level, level to the ground.
Yeah.
The septum would run right down to the center of the nose. The septum, the outside of the nose goes into the septum at about a 45-degree angle, just like a deer. You have the width of the nostril, and it immediately starts tapering in to the septum. On a deer, we always used to tell students, take a live deer won't let you do it, so you have to take a deceased deer, but you can take some kind of a probe, any kind of a dull probe, stick it up in the nostril, and you can see it dent out on the top of the muzzle because that skin is very thin and the cartilage is up there is very thin. So you can actually make that protrude out through there. So the top of the nostril opening is also angled up. There's nothing more than a millimeter of cartilage and skin on the upside. On your deer, elk, moose, the nostril opening makes a curl. I always compare it to like a snail shell or something like that. Makes a nice little curl, and the mountain lion nose does the same thing. The bobcat nose does the same thing. And so there's a lot of similarities.
Yep.
So with that in mind, the first thing we would have done also, and we did this, probably didn't say it, but when we stuck the skin, when we test fit the skin, we actually checked that nostril or the nose pad, and that nose pad has to be thinned, really paper thin.
Yep.
If you leave a lot of tissue on that nose skin and then put it over a nose that's already the right size or maybe a little bit on the big side, you're going to have a nose that doesn't look like it belongs to this animal.
That is something that is very, very important and comes through, whether it's the tuck grooves allowing the skin, the nose, we have to allow enough tuck, and we have to have thin leather to go in there to tuck in place. So
now I'm just going to take the Dremel. You can do hand tools. If you're afraid of the Dremel, there's nothing wrong with taking little knives, little probes, and sculpting this out. This foam is reasonably soft that you can shape your nostril. We a lot of times will do it with a little bit like that, and the Dremels come with different collets, so you can put a smaller bit in or a bigger bit if you want. And I'm just going to slowly start carving on each one. It's real easy to get one looking the way you want. It's very difficult to make two that match. Don't get concerned if maybe you do something that you think, oh no, I ruined it. No, you didn't. A little bit of clay is going to fix it, a little bit of epoxy sculpt to repair it. Yeah. Now, the one thing, would you hand me that head right there? Mm-hmm. The one thing that catches my eye on this mannequin is I see that we have a reasonable seam down here, like 32nd of an inch wide. 32nd of an inch wider seam, spread your face out a little bit, and this distance between your nostrils is also just a little bit bigger. So I want to make sure that when I get done augering the nostrils out, that I have that type of a distance in here.
Yeah. With skin on top of it,
With
too.
skin on top of it, you're right.
You need to hold?
Okay, got it. Now I want to be level on the floor. I want to go up towards the ceiling, close to the skin. I want to make under his little nostril wing, I want to make room for skin to tuck. Okay, so you probably can't see that, but something like that.
Yeah. Are you able to show the inside nose of the bobcat skin?
Sure.
Yeah. And we'll probably touch this up just a little bit right before we mount him. We like to get him as thin as we possibly can. Sometimes as you spray it down, it gets a little thicker, and we usually go back and clean that up, but that's how we've got the nostrils.
A good tip for some of you people, if you've never tried it, is as this bobcat skin lays out on the table and gets kind of dry, take a small dowel, like a pencil, invert the nostrils, put pressure against the nostrils with that little pencil dowel, and take a Dremel with a fine sanding wheel, those little drum sanders I call them, and you can sand that skin, onion skin thin, you know, super, super thin. You can do the whole face, but it has to be the right dryness. If there's a lot of moisture in it, it doesn't work very well. Something else I noticed as you're manipulating that face, he doesn't look like he has any whiskers. Did we tell him about that earlier?
I don't think we did. That's a really good point. So we would have pulled whiskers on this before we did any fleshing. More than likely did it while he was still on the carcass, but possibly waited until after it was skinned. But we took all of the major whiskers off, above the eye, both sides. There's a couple of little whiskers that come out the side of his cheek, and a few down on the bottom under his chin. Down here, you can see usually on the skin side, a few down in here. We took those off and we put them onto a little piece of tape, onto a piece of paper, and we've saved those aside somewhere.
And you put them right on. You can put them right on your measurement sheet. I know exactly where they're at. You can put them right on your measurement sheet. Lay them out with a little arrow that shows they'll be in rows, and you'll see the little black dark spots on the face where they go.
Right there, Kate. You can probably.
But if you put them in order, put a piece of masking tape over them, and you can save them with an arrow to that spot. And we've done everything you can think of for whiskers. We've tried fleshing around them. We've tried cutting out the cheek pad, filling it with clay, trying to insert them in there. Nothing works prettier than pulling them out and reinserting them.
Yeah.
And to reinsert them, you take like a little T-pin, and you, whoops, not that T-pin, I guess. Take a little T-pin and poke a hole, and you look at your reference pictures, you'll see, now you do this after the animal's all mounted and you've done your, you're doing your face work and all your finish work. Look at your reference picture at the angle that you want him. If he's real aggressive, maybe snarling, they're going to be forward. If he's just being docile, they may be straight out or angled back. So you take your pin, you find those little dark spots, and you poke the pin in right through the leather, let it hang there, take the whisker that you're, and we'll show you this, I hope, when we do finish work, if we don't forget. Take the whisker, dip it in a little bit of Elmer's glue, pull the pin out, stick the whisker in, adjust it for attitude, and do it again. And it sounds extremely tedious and difficult. It's not. It's very easy.
And it leaves you with a very, very nice, predictable result. All the other methods and a dozen more, there are lots of ways to do it, but this is the one that I think we get the nicest, most predictable
we like it.
Results from. So that's what we do with our whiskers. You've got the nose. Shall we do a lip slot too?
Slot? You want to do it with the same bit?
Sure.
Okay.
I think so. I think we can get it in there. You can do it with the tip of a knife.
Yeah.
You can do it with your Dremel bit. We just have to accommodate the thickness, or hopefully thinness, of leather that we have here, doubled over, and it's got to tuck into a nice slot there. So we've left this little apron of skin. Now we have to have some place to put it.
And this bit is just a hair on the big side, I think.
Is it?
But
I
now
can
this
do a
is,
knife if you want.
I can get it,
You
I
get it?
think.
Okay.
Would you hand me your knife once?
Yeah.
This is a lot like a deer. When you cut your lip slot, if you were to cut it at this angle, you're going to tuck your lips and you're going to separate the top jaw from the bottom jaw, and you're going to get a real wide lip slot. If you cut it at this angle, you're like it really in real life kind of wraps around, you're going to weaken this side foam, and as you tuck, you have a good chance of busting it out. If you do it at a 45, it's going to look good. It's not going to give you a wide line or anything like that, and it will hide the wraparound of the skin. And when we get in here, you're going to have a lot more skin to tuck in the back corners. So when I stick the Dremel bit in, I'm going to make a larger cavern beneath the surface. Yep. Yeah, you can hang on to them once. I'll go from this side. And rock him back just a little bit. Yeah, perfect. Thank you, nurse.
Good.
I think so. Okay. Lips are done. Nose is done. Should we show them ears?
Yep, we can show them ears. We talked to them just a little bit about ears and ear attitudes previously when we were setting up the mannequin. This is one of our Bobcat heads, and it has a really nice accommodation for a nice accurate ear position without having to do a whole bunch of changing to the head. The ear canal on a Bobcat is real low on the side of the skull, and if you're questioning where that's going to go, definitely get your reference out. Nice to have a skull hanging around to use as reference if you need, but this mannequin is pretty well shaped to accommodate the ear position that we're after, and we're kind of looking for basically a forward ear, I believe. So there's not much clay work to do to this. If you wanted to, and often when we'd set up our deer, any of our other animals, we'll pre-do our clay work all the way around the perimeter, build all of our musculature, but there's so little here to do. I think we're just going to
do it after.
Yeah, we'll do it after on the skin because most of this would break off anyways. So as far as the mannequin goes, I think we can set that aside.
Okay.
And we can show them we can go ahead and put the ear liner in. We're going to use an ear liner. These are Gary Zahner's ear liners, trademark.
Trademark, yep.
Ear liners. And anytime you have any ear, one of the two critical components are to split the ear all the way to the very, 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 very edge, which we have hopefully already done for you during the tanning process. We like to do that. Another tip, we like to do all of our fleshing when it's in the pickled state, so that when he's tanned, we know he's not quite as safe as he was in the pickle. We can get split to the very, very edge, and we're not up against that time clock. So we would have done that ahead of time. And I'll turn his ears to show you basically what we've got turned out here. Just like that. And you'll see there's probably some little tiny pinholes in there, nothing that glue is going to get through, but they're very, very small. Just as we're working our way around the edge, I feel just a little bit of a tip right here.
You know, just to give you an example,
Open that up.
my son Mark and I went to Texas, and I shot a aoudad. And you always think you're going to do your own trophies, you know, right away. You're all excited. I brought it home, fleshed it, put it in the pickle, and there it sat. And I didn't get around to it. I would walk past that pickle every couple days thinking, man, I got to do something with this. So I would stir it. Occasionally, I would have to add more pickle because it was evaporating. And that aoudad was in the pickle. You guys are going to cringe at this. It was my aoudad. My aoudad was in the pickle for 7 years. Wow. 7 years. And when we mounted it, it made the front cover of the supply catalog, and it still is out in our showroom, our life-size aoudad. It mounted beautifully. The hair is beautiful. It did the backstroke in the pickle for 7 years. A tan hide you can't let lay around like that.
Yeah, true. Very, very true. But in that pickled state, those hides are pretty stable. So we have just gone through, and you did an exceptional job over the course of 7 years of splitting and fleshing and turning. That's why it took so long.
The first 7 days, I think.
I'm just going around here and making sure we've got everything split. We will split and check and split and check several times. The key to a really nice ear is making sure that your edges are nice and crisp and clean, and that all comes from being split all the way to the edge. So we've done that. We've got the ears all the way split out like that.
You'll start, the more experience you have, you'll start recognizing the shape of the ear sac, for lack of a better word, if you're split all the way.
Yeah.
Especially on deer, you can take, with a little experience, you can take one look at a deer's ear turned inside out, and we will know. Yeah. Not quite.
He's got a little ways to go, or he's in good shape. So the next thing we're going to do is check our ear liner and check the fit. And worth mentioning too, we didn't take the ear cartilage out of this Bobcat. If you want to and you're comfortable with removing the cartilage, we would do that. We do it with all of our deer. We do it with about any other animal that we do. A Bobcat, the ear cartilage is so very thin, and our liners are very thin, that once we insert an ear liner into this little pocket, which we have all split out, the gain is so minimal. And these are a nice rigid cartilage. It's not going to turn over. It's not going to curl if we're split all the way to the edge. We've just elected to leave the cartilage in it, and we'll treat it exactly the same that we would if we had pulled the cartilage out of it. People that do Bondo ears would leave the cartilage in at this point.
And we would do that like on probably a fox, coyote, bobcat.
Yep, any of those thinner, smaller ears. This works pretty well. It's not going to hurt you at all. And really the only gain, unless you're competing, which they're going to check your thickness of your ear, the only thing you're going to gain is a few holes by pulling it out as far as what the customer's going to see. So we've got the cartilage still in it, split all the way out. I do need to check and make sure that we have a good fit, and I will turn it back the other way to check that fit real quick. And this is, don't short yourself on any of your test fits, whether it be an ear or the whole body. You will regret it someday if you don't. An ear fit should be fairly loose. To make a really nice clean ear, you do not want it to be tight. And this, as you can see here, when I mention tight, we want this skin on the inner ear to lay naturally against the contour of the ear liner. If it drums across there anywhere, if it's tight, you're going to fight that during the drying process. So be very careful. We've got this little notch that's all split nicely. Make sure that that's in the right place. And
these ears are easy to trim. They'll trim with any scissors.
Yes, yeah, the thermoform plastic trims really nice. We've actually trimmed the little notch. We've pre-trimmed that to make sure that it's in the right place on the ear skin. So we've double checked all of that, and now at this point I think we can just glue them in. Sure. Should we do that? I'll pull these out, and if you would like to, do you want to wash ears or rough? Wash? Okay.
And we do this for every animal we put ears in. Lacquer thinner, have a little bit of lacquer thinner, and we're going to put them in here. I'll take your little brush maybe once. And just be careful because they're fragile. And you're going to get any tanning oils off here.
And while you are cleaning that with lacquer thinner, I'm going to rough the ear liner with a foam rougher. And we're just roughing up that inner ear portion where that skin has to lay so that we get a good adhesion between the plastic and the skin. Watch it. You'll scratch yourself with this thing. Just something like that.
Now, while he's roughing up that, this cartilage is very kind of a slick material, and you can rough it gently up with your little foam rougher, and it lifts up and kind of swades the cartilage so that it gives the glue something to grip to. Be careful, these are like needles, and they will tear your skin if you get too aggressive with it. Now next week I think we'll probably mount the head for you and kind of show you our process of that, and I think after that we'll start sewing on the legs, which you won't have to watch us do. You won't have to sit through all of that. Okay,
Got him all roughed up?
I think he's roughed a little.
Good. And I just did one ear.
Which one?
That one. I'm not sure. It is a good thing to note too. Pay special attention to your ears and make sure you get the left ear in the left ear skin and the right ear in the right ear skin, and that sounds really silly.
Teaching students, we saw it every day, didn't we?
Every day. Every class for sure. So wow, that's nice. That's
Mountain goats
really good.
curled up, antelope curled down.
Yep, saw that often. So now, you wash that with lacquer thinner, and I've got the hair dryer here. I'm just gonna put enough heat and air against this to evaporate the thinner. I don't want to dry it out. And that's really important, that we don't want to let this skin dry before the glue dries. So I just want to make sure that the solvent is all evaporated so it doesn't inhibit any of the adhesion between the ear liner and the skin.
Now drumming is every taxidermist knows, drumming is one of the worst things that can happen, and it's when your skin spans across any kind of a valley, like the inside of an ear, and a drummed ear will just ruin your day.
Yeah.
So washing them in lacquer thinner, roughing them up, using a good glue, and babysitting them, and having a slightly undersized ear is the best medicine for that.
Yes. Now, you're going to talk about
Henry's
this
pocket?
Yeah, who's Henry?
I don't know, but that's Henry's pocket.
So this is just that little secondary flap
And it
that
picks up
is...
high frequency sounds.
You believe that?
No.
That's what Wiki said though, huh? Google. So to accommodate that, that is not included here on the ear liner. This little part in the front is, and this little notch here is right there, but this secondary flap in the back is not. So to do that, I'm going to take a little pinch of clay. You could use an epoxy sculpt. You could use anything that you can manipulate up inside the ear skin. that will dry nice and hard for you. But I'm going to put that clay into that pocket, and then I'm just going to work it out nice and thin. The one thing you don't want to do is have that be really thick. Now the nice thing about this being clay is we can manipulate it after we get the ear liner in place to kind of blend it in. Just like that. Make sure that's nice and full, but not thick. So that's the first step. Like that. And then I will come back over here, and we're going to use Derma Grip ear adhesive, and is that for upset stomachs too?
Yeah, it looks like Pepto-Bismol, huh?
It does. I'm just going to take a little bit and paint it on the ear liner.
And there's a lot of different, you can use Pro One hide paste, you can use Derma Grip hide paste, you can use latex caulk. There's so many different, you can use any of the epoxies. There's a lot of different formulas for gluing your ears in, and we get samples continually with the supply company, and Derma Grip gave us samples, man, years ago, and we kind of weren't all that excited about it, thought it was a gimmick with the pink color and everything, but it's one of our better adhesives when it comes to putting ears in. We like it.
Yeah, very, very much. Derma Grip does a good job. So I've got some on the back of the ear as well as the front. It's not real thick. You don't want it all goopy, but we want enough that we get good coverage. I'm going to put some down in here, but I still want to be able to hold it. I don't want it all over my fingers, and we're going to clay up over the muscle in the back, so I've left a little bit of that bare without glue on it. And now we're just going to slide that ear liner up into the skin. And I might just go right through the mouth. He's got a big mouth. So I'll just go just like that. Make sure you can see that, Kate. I just going to slide that in there.
Now is not the time to remember that you forgot to test fit it.
We want to know that it's going to fit now because it is goopy and yucky. And if this was epoxy, you would not be getting it back. And so now we've got a liner, we've got glue, we've got skin, and I think now we just play taxidermist and arrange the skin, arrange the dermy to get ourselves a really nice ear shape. Making sure to tuck that little, who was it? Henry? Henry's little Dumaflachi.
Henry's hairy gland.
I think there's enough of the delay we can take that out. Facebook gets us for that. But I think that's kind of what we're looking for right now. I'm just going to keep kind of arranging and tucking, make sure I have all that skin in place. Bring that around. We do have little ear edge carding that we would probably put on this at the end after he's mounted, which helps maintain a really nice crisp ear shape. I'm going to use a little pin and tuck this skin a little bit more. And look at your reference material to see how all of these little hair fibers lay over the ear. That hair is all there for a reason.
And that looks nice already.
I think it's given us a nice shape, a real nice ear shape. Real bobcat-y look to it. And we would just continue to manipulate this. That's the nice thing about an air dry glue. As long as this is damp, we can still continue to arrange the skin and make sure that it's in the right place. And we would do the same thing for the other ear.
And you even like to put them in the fridge or freezer overnight.
I do. I really do. In fact, we did that with the sable this morning because we had the ears already sculpted on the mannequin, had a little bit of time and had the hide out. Just took a minute to glue, or a few minutes, to glue the ears in, arrange the skin, and let those set up. It's really nice when you get him out of the freezer and go to mount him that you don't have to worry about those ears, that they're already done, and it just expedites your process tremendously. So
that looks really good.
I think that's going to make a nice ear. I've got a little bit of skin around the front that I need to tuck.
And next week we'll proceed with head mounting, and we'll probably set the eyes again real quick for you. We did it once, but we'll do at least one eye for you. Show you tucking the nose, tucking the lips, maybe grooming, taxing the skin, and then the most important part of it is completed. And we have a giveaway. Should we do the giveaway?
We do.
Giveaway this week is a bobcat head sculpted by our very own Cindy Chrisman. And we're going to send with you a pair of bobcat ears, just like we used on these. Same thing. And you can practice setting your own bobcat ears. You can use this head. You can cut it off of any mannequin. It's a exceptional looking bobcat head. This is what we would use when we mount ours, and I think we get a pretty darn nice look out of them. So this goes to the winner, who is?
Louis Hayden.
Oh, yeah.
Louis Hayden.
So you'll like that, and it goes with your next order. Is that how they get it?
Yes, that's correct.
Louise. That's
I'm
what I
sorry.
did.
I was thinking, I'm sorry. I was like, uh-oh, I think I butchered that.
I was going to ask you afterwards. Way to go, Louise. Give it a try, see what you think. She'll put that to very good use.
Yes, you will. Yes, you
And shout out and happy birthday to my favorite brother, Don Matuska, who also happens to be our woodcutter. Big birthday today.
There were a couple big September birthdays.
Happy birthday, Don.
Happy birthday, Don.
Good?
There we go. I think so.
Give it a try.
All right. We'll see you